e-gaming bets, online betting for every esports fan. Dota 2 and Hearthstone, CSGO and Overwatch, StarCraft 2, the choice is yours. Express bets for multiple matches or live bets on the game you are watching right now. Know your way around Dota 2? Make a prediction for picks and bans. Play CSGO? Discover more than 5 various kinds of bets just for a single map. Daily quests for all participants and all the best choice of payment systems. More than 600,000 users have already made their bets on the spectacular matches since 2011. EGB.com. You know for sure who's gonna win.
Getting tired of playing with the usual skins, but don't have enough money to buy a new one? Get rich fast with CSGoFast.com. CSGoFast. It's a strong chance of winning in every game. Several rooms with different game modes. Daily, more than 1,000 games, 5,000 players, and 25,000 skins at stake. You don't need much in order to sweep the board.
Welcome back to the Starladder I-League Star Series Season 2. My name is TomBiz14. Joining me will be Flakes, and we've just witnessed map number 1 of this matchup, Cloud9 versus Optic. And, well, the odds, it said that it was going to go heavily in the Cloud9 favor, and for a little bit of the match it did, up until the point where Optic won.
Well, that's the thing. I think you look at it on paper, and it's not even odds and not even skill. It's just the sheer result from last night that kind of very much had a heavy sway on terms of everything, really. But then you look at the performance of that match, and one at the get-go, kind of Cloud9, they were playing very strong. They were delivering a couple of frags here and there. But it all seemed to crumble towards the end, and ultimately, Optic, they used their team play to outbait. Just basically not necessarily out-aim, because I would still stand by the fact that Cloud9 have the stronger aimers. I feel like at times there were kind of inklings that Tarek was being this kind of aim god himself. But even then, the team play was what overpowered, and that's the team play is what worked out for Optic. The utility usage, right, was on point the entire game.
Well, the other thing is you could say that even DAPS, I always like to point out the fact that you learn a lot more from a loss than a win. That you can look at all the problems, and maybe it took him a little bit of time during the match to say, okay, well, this combo's not working on B, let's try something else, and he did, and it worked. And that's something I like about sort of in-game leaders, if they're able to have that dynamic style of things where they can go, you know what, okay, this isn't working, let's switch things up. Now, this map is one where, in terms of like data over these two teams, obviously they both had new players, so the data is quite limited. But you talk about the idea that most recent Mirage result from Optic was losing 16-3 to Liquid. Obviously, Liquid still have a lot of crazy players in the roster, so they're still arguably, well, not really arguably, I'd say they're still the best team in NA. But then you look at the sort of other side of things, and Cloud9 recently beat NRG. But again, I don't know how highly I rate NRG. Like, would I say that that's a particularly good result? No. So, in terms of how they're actually going to play off against each other, I'm not too sure. Again, it could come down to individual prowess. I'm looking at the T sides of both of these teams because realistically, neither of them have particularly good T sides. The CT side of this map is the stronger of the two, but you have to obviously build yourself up some rounds, otherwise things can become much more problematic. And, well, going into this pistol round, Cloud9 have got their CT sided start. That's going to be important for them. Definitely going to be looking a little bit more onto Skadoodle for this one because I think that AWP role is huge, especially when you have that sort of player who can just have that maneuverability position and just flick shots like he was like sort of mid-periods of the game. Like sometimes in positions where it didn't matter, but it was still a point. Nice to see that he can still hit those shots. Either way, pistol round up and running. Tech 9 armor onto Tarek and Skadoodle with the kit.
Just going to be Optic playing this one nice and slow. They certainly even the inkling they want to head towards B. You can see the Rush just rolling in. Rush and Tarek going to be the first to walk in. Shroud not taking a single shot until the prime time, and it's going to pay off. He will find himself one. A quick trade to roll, and Rush going to be doing some work of his own with the Glock, rattling off a couple more shots, seeing if maybe he can make it too. But unfortunately, it's only going to amount to damage. Automatic cutting it very low. Does stand on the brink of death, but eventually he's going to walk right into his own coffin as Mixwell will take him down. Now only in this 4 versus 3. The Bombers made its way. Mixwell just going to be rattling off a couple more shots. Nothing trying to stay alive. He's going to fall very early on.
Yeah, nothing pushed in individually, though, so there was nobody really there to actually help him out, and I'm not sure whether that was a mistake on his part or the rest of the team, but Stewie was nowhere near. Skadoodle wasn't even anywhere onto the site yet, and it just meant that he was basically isolated for everybody to shoot at. Realistically, it just worked very nicely for Rush and Mixwell. No real input from Tarek and the Tech9, but hey-ho, it doesn't work every single time. And now we're looking at the start again from Optic. They've managed to get themselves the pistol. It still came pretty close. I think they may have even got... Did they get both pistols? I'm not even sure. Either way, they've got this one. And we're going to be looking to see what they could do. Rush will even finish off Stewie, so not going to keep the Kevlar into the next round, which would have been a nice little addition. And straight off the bat, they're buying up 2 AKs, a rifle, a third rifle, in fact, and playing this one pretty safe. Probably going to go for a more long-range aggression, but already we see the scout into Shroud, and probably going to see a little bit of a force on some pistols elsewhere.
The huge thing that was evident for me in that round alone, and we saw it very much so in the first map as well, is that Cloud9, their team play is still just not quite on point at the moment. It's not quite working out. It's just not this together and I guess cohesive play, which is proving to be quite punishing. We'll actually rush the first man to take the brute of the damage, knock down to 41 HP very early on. But even then, Optic, they have the huge advantage when it comes down to just pure firepower. They have the rifles in play, make that 4 of them, 2 Galils backed up by 2 AK-47s. Of course, you have that with the MAC-10 looking to make some Skrilla on his own, but even then you look at it and go, well, Cloud9, yes, they have the scout in play, that can do some nice damage, but that's the scout done and dusted, just completely forced out of the angles. These pistols, they're going to be very much caught off guard because there's no one playing these close angles on B. That's where you want to be playing the pistols. You can't play from market. And we're seeing that one just come full circle because they're going to be picked off like flies.
Yeah, they were really relying on Shroud there to at least slow down or spot out the players. And the problem is that position was so much more valuable when the sort of hitboxes were poor. So now that Valve have actually fixed the game to an extent, it's a little bit harder to actually make that sort of jump scout work, and takes a lot of reliability on your opposition not hitting their shots. So it didn't really work out for him. He gets taken down instantly. Nothing's going to find one. And if he can save an SMG, that's actually more valuable than meets the eye, because every frag with that is $600. But he will just go spraying through. Not going to find anything in this scenario. And that's going to be a second round relatively clean on the board for Optic.
Indeed, it was very much clear cut. Wasn't really too much major damage being inflicted. Cloud9, it's going to be the same old loop that we've witnessed in the past. Nothing really too important to touch on, just the USPs in play. Not even any buy is really going to roll on in. The only actual bit of investment will be the utility that nothing decided to go for pretty much late into that period, which maybe that'll pay off. Maybe it won't. Stewie actually can do some damage. We'll take down NAF, so that is something. And now Datsy's just making so much money. Stewie going to find himself another making use of the close range Glil. Damage is damage, so not going to write off completely, especially when another frag will roll in. Now it's going to be a 2 versus 2. Suddenly, this is doable.
Yeah, this is getting a little bit scary now. Stewie with his 3rd kill of the round. There was a dink as well onto Tarek, so he's down to just 6 HP. A lot of this will rely on Mixwell. He is going to go looking, but I'm not sure he knows where Stewie is. And in fact, Stewie's going to find him, and then Straub will end the round. A huge round coming out from Stewie. He manages to grab himself 4 kills off the bat of 1 pistol. And that is scary stuff that Cloud9 managed to bring that one back early. Of course, there should be a buy coming back in on the Optic side of things, but there is no way in hell Cloud9 should have got away with that round.
Somehow, they make it work. Not going to judge them. I'm just going to praise them for doing just that. The task has been accomplished. They've got themselves a round on the board. Optic, they are on 2. They've got money to buy, so it's going to be still 4 rifles and a Tech9 instead of an SMG in play this time around. But even then, it's still a fairly strong buy. But on the flip side, Cloud9, they've got the AWP in play. Skadoodle looking to do some damage in this round. Nothing going to be the first to find himself a frag. Takes down that. Tarek going to be just walking straight through the smoke. Suddenly rethinks his life options as well. He's going to get fragged. Takes the brunt of the damage as well very early on. So spells a bit of an awkward end, as now they're already 2 men down on the Optic side. What on earth can they possibly do? They have no map control. The only really area they do have is close towards Connector, and they're being wrapped up right from behind.
Yeah, the sort of play from Stewie that makes you want to punch a hole in your monitor. Just flashes through the smoke, takes down Tarek, and leaves the rest of the team at a 2-man disadvantage. Skadoodle with the AWP. We do see a couple of low players on the side. Cloud9, but already Skadoodle adding another frag to the pile, and this leaves just Rush and Daps to at least try and add some damage to the Cloud9 side of things, but it's not looking friendly.
Damage? Certainly good, but the answer is still just going to be no. It seems to be a very common trend throughout the series so far, is that neither team really likes to allow damage, and when it does happen, it's in a huge form. It's not just subtle pistol shots here and there that we maybe see with other teams. Say, we saw it with Renegades a little bit. It was more, the damage was less huge and more subtle inflictions. That aside, it's going to be Optic actually looking to see what they can pull off in terms of damage again, because they're limited to still just these pistols.
It shouldn't even been in this scenario. The fact that they're ecoing in the 5th round after winning the first 2, and you just think, well, how does that even happen? What happened in that 3rd round? And realistically, carnage happened. That's what happened. They lost to a pistol on Stewie 2K, picking up a Galil and finding 3 extra kills. It doesn't really have much logic to it, and because of that, they're now going to be the ones ecoing, and that's just such an early problem. Yes, they've got 2 rounds already, so they could just work back into this one, but that's got to be a bit of a kick in the teeth to lose that sort of round. And, well, it doesn't look like Cloud9 are really looking to lose any players in these follow-up rounds. They want to keep things squeaky clean. There is still the opportunity to get a bomb plant, but I think Shroud is more than likely to deny that. Mixwell now just going to be pushing onto him with the Glock. If Shroud were to go down here, I'd question his ability, and it's not going to happen at all. 5 players stay alive once again, and finally, after the initial break from the board because of the mistakes of Optic, we will finally see another buy on the board.
Looking forward to see how that will pay off. Will it come with any nice little dividends for them to kickstart their way into what will be the 6th round? You take a look at money. Optic still very much struggling. Cloud9 on the flip side, they are starting to build things up. You see $9,900 in the bank of Shroud, $50 aside, which you can't really complain about. But it's going to be Skadoodle up towards mid-rush, going to be the first man to find a frag, but this is an opportunity for Skadoodle, but he's not quite going to connect the shots. Now they will recede back into these smokes. No potential there anymore. But Daps, he's got 4 mid-control. Tarrant going to find one of his own, takes down Stewie, a huge player to lose very early on into this round. It's all just falling apart. Daps going to find another, somehow just being allowed to run wherever he so pleases, as Naf going to take down Shroud. And one by one, they seem to have just been knocked over. Skadoodle, the last man standing over towards mid, the player that I looked at from the get-go of this round. But what can he possibly do? Goes for the Starladder attempt. It seemed like it was going to line up, but it's still just going to be only 1 frag as Rush. Well, he's going to find the quick trade.
Yeah, realistically, that was a wonderful round from Optic. But they've got to do it again, because the money that, well, I want to say they've allowed Cloud9 to build up.
They have done. I'd have to be completely agree with you on that one.
They've allowed them to build up over time. They didn't manage to get any kills in the follow-up rounds to that one abysmal round, and, well, it means they're going to come straight back with another buy. So the chance for Optic to be reset again, obviously with 3 rounds already on the board, if they can get a couple more, if they can win this round, then sure, there's a huge factor for them that they could actually take this much further than possibly expected. But Shroud starting things up with an early frag is not going to help their fight anymore. And looking at the remainder of the players, Tarek actually playing the AWP in this scenario could just be a switch up on the map itself. He was always very, very good at this map. I have to add that in. I've always been a fan of Tarek, especially on the CT side of Mirage. So if he can sort of pull out that old stretch when he was in CLG, then there is the possibility. That was, of course, when he was more the sort of hard carry of that team, before JDM went into that sort of ham AWP role, and obviously before the whole team sort of fell apart and now have a bit of an interesting lineup. I have to put it in that sort of stance, but either way, let's see if he can have that sort of impact with the AWP. In terms of control, they have taken over middle, and it looks like the inkling from Cloud9 is that this is coming over towards A, as they sort of had 4 players over towards that jungle avenue, which is a little bit of an oversight, I have to say. But in terms of the actual push, it seems like it's making its way on towards B. The bomb slowly making its rotation. It will be Shroud to do the majority of the damage, and he's already going to be finding one and a second. Nice work from Shroud, really holding this site down individually, looking for a little bit more. May get caught out as Rush now pushes in, but Automatic is there to hold the line. Eventually we will see the death of Shroud, but nothing is there to return. And, well, will they pick up the secondary AWP? It looks like they will.
Looking to see what the secondary AWP can bring to the table in terms of map control and positioning, because I feel like on Mirage, a lot of things that teams do often overrate. It's just taking yourself some very early on control, and also forcing your own rotates, especially on the CT side, because Optic, for example, if they put a bit of pressure over towards B, there's nothing stopping a bit of a risky play from Cloud9 for them to counterplay and push through ramp and get themselves some quick information if it's clear, or even more so, even look for a frag. But either way, we're on our 8th round, of course. Nothing really too much to say, just these pistols in the hands of Optic. We do see the armor on Mixwell and Dap, so maybe they can have a bit of a stronger impact. The 2 players we've been looking to see maybe even try and get themselves a rifle. We also are going to be looking to hold this one off. They have the information. They have been spotted out. Rush is very quick to get himself onto the site, but the answer is going to be completely denied. Automatic taking him straight down. Stewie coming in with another. Nothing, finding one of his own. It seems like every member of Cloud9 wants to just grab himself a piece of this pie. Optic just aren't getting nowhere.
They have at least got the bomb down, though. So all the carnage that ensued, where they get all those smokes out onto the site, they managed to get a bomb down. They also find a frag, which isn't going to be the most influential thing in terms of the economy of Cloud9, but at least they're going to build their own money, and I think that's a more important ploy. The one thing I am intrigued by is that Automatic has now picked up that secondary AWP, so we've now seen it on nigh on every single player except for, I think, nothing. I don't think he's picked up the AWP just yet, although he had it for one round right near the end. So definitely showing the sort of viability of this lineup where they can just switch things around, and he had a nice impact in it. But now you see the value of that sort of bomb plant. We will finally see Mixwell on an AWP. Wasn't feeling it at all on Cash, but we'll pick it up for this T side of Mirage. And, well, obviously a well-known player in this sort of community, the man from Spain. Whether he can have the impact that we know he can is another thing altogether, as he has been quite, well, lackluster since Tarek has joined the roster. But you never know, that standout performance could be coming, and what a big time it would be to have it.
Clock is beginning to ticking its way down. Rush just still playing this very aggressive early on role. Naf actually going to find himself an entry, not something you see every single day. But he seems to be stepping up in this series, which can't knock at all. Just doing the work for his team. So now Mixwell, he's looking to find himself a pick with the AWP, but the positioning not quite in his favour just yet. The bomb, most notably, just held towards the top of mid, which means the style that Optic are playing is very much this pick style. They're just looking to see what falls into their hands. Will Cloud9 go aggressive? Just walk away pretty much in this lackluster style. That's what we're looking to see, is we'll see a bit of utility just being utilised over towards B. But overall, nothing too special just yet, as now Optic, they've walked away with the one pick, can't find anything else. So this is that period where they now pick up the bomb, move over towards the site and begin that execution. But you know what I mentioned, counter map control? Look at nothing.
Yeah, he's already taken so much map control. The only problem is, in return, the A site belongs to T, so realistically he's going to have to make that impact known, and he is coming in with that flank. We will see the loss of Skadoodle. Automatic now grabs one back in return, but look at Rush, he's done just the same. An easy frag in the end, looking for a little bit more as Automatic is still behind, and the problem is now this is going to be an individual push, and they've already spotted him out. The problem is they realize that all the other avenues are covered. They know that there's nobody else in any other stance. He's just a little bit too slow again, but he will open things up onto Tarek. Now there is a little bit potential, but nothing. He's really waiting for his teammate. Automatic still trying to get his way back in, and I wonder if he's actually going to check some of the other angles, if he's ready to check Mixwell's position, and Rush is actually holding off to try and cover his teammate. They don't seem to know where any of the angles are, and there goes Mixwell. Pounces at the perfect time. Automatic, he has the AWP, but there's no way he's getting this done now. There's no way he's doing anything, but he still goes aggressive onto the site, hands over an AWP into the hands of Mixwell, and that's going to be a fourth round already on the board for Optic.
The turning point for me for Optic currently is Mixwell, a player that I would say I don't think many would disagree if I said he was hugely inconsistent, because he kind of does flop quite a lot. But when he is popping off, he can be huge.
Well, that's when Optic are at their best. When he is at the top of the board, that is when you know that they're doing well. You can have Naf as well, having his big games. He's obviously possibly a star in the making, still a youngster, but speaking of stars, well, there's Skadoodle popping the head straight of Rush down mid, straight through the smoke. I think he also tagged onto Mixwell as well. Tarek will have the AWP in this round, so switching it back between the two fraggers, and there goes Mixwell with the AK. Looking for a little bit more, actually going to drop a nade right onto Nothing's feet, and I think he heard a little bit of a tag there, and this is all falling apart. Optic just bring this round straight into contention once again, as only Shroud remains, and unless he's going to be making some crazy clutch play, I think the decision has to be to fall back.
There aren't many scenarios in Counter-Strike where you can describe a round as almost perfect. That, for me, that was almost perfect. Only one pick came in, and that wasn't really a pick that Rush could try and stop. Let's be realistic. Straight through the smoke, straight down mid.
Yeah, unless he was going to hold the most passive angles ever in history. Just like, nope, not going mid anymore because Skadoodle is just going to spam shots there and kill me. No, of course, that's one of those shots that just happens. But the fact that they just pounce on the back of it onto the A site and just every single, well, mainly, I say every single player, the two big players, the players that we talk about the most. We talk about Mixwell, and we want to talk about Tarek now that he's in this roster. We've always mentioned him, always said that he has the massive potential to be that star player in some of the NA lineups he has been. He's never been, for me, like a star player in terms of like overall rankings. Like, he's been an NA star, but he's never been a star. Like, he's never been a player who can completely change games on the big stage. And, well, if they win this map, he's going to get a chance to at least.
Well, that's the nice thing. You look at Mixwell, he can step up, but Tarek can at the same time. And, well, the lethal prospect for me is imagine both of these players popping off at any moment, supported by a huge player like Naf, who at times can do some damage of his own. And then you have the support player of Daps and Rush. That is a very scary Optic lineup that I can't wait to see what they can pull off. So now they're going to be creeping back up on towards the speed site. Shao going to be the first man to spot them out. But will he be able to just see this one? At the corners of the Molotov, surely will give him the information. He's going to go for the peak, finds the first, goes for the second. Will only find the legs, so not too much damage being done, but it's a frag nonetheless and information, which is the most important factor for the CT side.
Yeah, already we're going to see Skadoodle and Shroud combining onto this B site. Shroud has been an absolute pinnacle player on B so far, just holding this site down individually and not allowing them anywhere near it. It's only been on the rotations that they've really struggled, but now Naf, we're looking at him, what he can do in terms of economic damage. We know that both teams are sort of struggling with money in this position in the half. Whether or not Cloud9 will be able to do too much if he does take down a few players. Of course, there's only 3 remaining. The only real problem is they do have the bomb firmly in their control, and Shroud is just ready and waiting to clear them out. Quad kill for him. Another big round coming up once again, the second they go B, and that is going to secure their economy. The problem for me is whether or not we'll see a buy. Daps has a little bit of extra cash, and potentially Mixwell has enough for an AK. You could say the same for Naf, and it looks like they are actually going to go for this one. So now I'm sort of questioning what the buy is actually going to be. Daps seems to have invested quite a bit, whereas the rest of the players not so sure what's actually come up, and that's going to be an AWP onto Tarek. So really investing in him at this stage. He had a big round just moments ago. You could say that with him and Mixwell, there's potential at any point in the match. But on the other side of things, we see the double AWP once again, this time onto Shroud, and of course the rifles on the remaining players.
Big problem when it comes down to economy is just how back and forth the last 6 rounds have been, which has really allowed Optic not to build things up. Cloud9, they're not exactly building up themselves either. They do have a little bit more to play with, but even then, economy looking fairly rough on both sides of the coin. We've talked about that double up setup of Cloud9. It seems to be having a nice little impact of its own. It's done some damage in the past. Looking to see if Shroud can do something. We said we haven't really seen him too much with the AWP. It's actually just Skadoodle, first of all. Tarek going to be doing some work of his own. All these orcs just really going to be watching every single player to see what they can bring to the table. Mixwell going to find another headshot, takes down another Mac. Daps picking up one off, was doing nothing. He's going to try and do some work, finds himself 2, makes it 3. Can he go even further up? Yes, he can. Takes down Tarek, looking to do the full deal. Mixwell, the player for him to try and find. 46 HP on the board. He's got the head armor in play, looks towards short, tries to take down Shroud, but unfortunately, one hell of a round, but it's not quite going to happen.
Yeah, nothing goes absolutely massive using one position and one position alone, a position that should have been checked. It has to be said, they should have checked over towards Sandwich, they should have checked round Tetris to see if there was a player in position. Instead, it cost them around 4 frags for nothing. And he's always been a player that can step up big, and he's done it in a crucial round. It's going to really damage the economy of Optic. It looks like they're about to try and streamline their way onto that A site, make that position their own, and at least get themselves a bomb plant in this round. However, we're coming to the close. The 10-5 half will be enough for Cloud9 to take this one over the line, but this is the aggressive push. Here are the Tech 9s already. We're going to see players falling. Nothing again. He's got himself another triple kill. Almost gets the 4th as Stewie takes that one out of his clutches. But that's 2 rounds in a row. He's got absolutely huge for his team, not allowing them anything of the sort. And that's going to be a flawless round again for Cloud9.
It's the same old narrative on loop the past 2 rounds. Nothing goes huge. He gives Optic a scrap of hope to try and play around in terms of what the positions they're holding and what firepower they have, but then just smashes them straight back into the ground, making them just go, well, this is all pointless. What on earth can we possibly do? That's what I'm really trying to sell home, just that point, because nothing, he's going huge. But it's also when he chooses to buy it, because Optic, they get themselves somewhere where they feel like they have confidence. They feel like, okay, guys, we've actually pulled this off. We've got ourselves onto a site, for example, and then he bites. So not only does he pick up 4 huge frags, but he breaks their mentality. But now it's almost going to be a bit more of a just casual round unfolding. Stewie going to find 1 with the rifle. Shroud going to pick up 1 with the AWP. But not too much to say, just these pistols being taken down 1 by 1.
Yeah, he's just tapping away, but quickly 2 pistol kills come in. Tarek and Rush adding a little bit of damage to the mix, but not anything that's going to hurt Cloud9 now. It's a little bit too late for the damage to really come into effect. In the last round, they're going to have plenty of money to purchase back up. Shroud could even get an AWP if wanted, but it seems like it's going to be Stewie picking up the secondary op, so it really has bounced around this Cloud9 roster. I'd say Optic do have enough for them to bring this one back. Of course, it is a CT-sided map. The only problem we are talking about is the fact that, well, their CT sub was a little bit slow starting last time, and I'm a little bit worried for the fact that if it's slow starting this time, they will lose the map. Stewie, that's just cruel, uses the smoke to bait in Naf, and then finds the frag on the edge of it. He lives in the smoke. You were merely, well, you adapted to it. He was born in it.
Indeed, as now you take a look at the bomb positioning from Optic. It's dropped over towards ramp. They've got 3 players towards mid, which is almost certain that we're heading towards A, because, you know what, jokes and references aside, this is just a huge firepower of an entire game. Both of these teams just popping off in just reckless rounds. And it seems to be just who can be more reckless in one scenario. We're in our last round. We are looking to see if Optic can go in this round and make it 6. Oh, Mixwell going to find himself one. We'll take down automatic. Nothing straight on the trade, but Mixwell, he says no. Trades it straight back, takes down nothing, brings it back to a 3 versus 3. But what on earth is there possibly even left to look at as we get down to our 55-second mark of the bomb? Now it's rotating, but Shroud, you're beginning to scare me. Are you going to do this? Are you seriously going to make this one work? They've jumped, they spotted him out. He finds the first, goes to the second, nearly makes the mess of it, but he lands the shots, takes down Daps, and now Mixwell, well, it's all good and well and good. You might be a huge player, but you're in a 1 versus 3, 40 seconds to play with, and you're being held in all angles, but he's going to find himself a huge one-tap nonetheless.
And now he's got to get that cross, though, because there are players holding the angles, and there's Stewie. Not going to allow anything from him in the round. And that's going to be it. 10-5 half. Pretty decent for Cloud9, especially when you look at the last 5 rounds, considering how it was so backwards and forwards across. The fact they get that streak at the end is crucial for the starting of the next one. Of course, Shroud just being pretty damn flawless on that B site. I don't think they really got much done on the B site at all, and a lot of his deaths were due to rotations or, oh, I found 3 kills and now I've died. Really nice stuff coming out from him. Nothing having 2 massive rounds for his team that basically destroyed the economy towards the end for Optic. On the other side of things, we have seen glimpses from Mixwell and Tarek as well, so not too worried just yet. Naf's a little bit quiet, so if he can step up, then there is still the potential. And, well, let's be honest, they won the pistol. If they win the second, then it will be a possible scenario. If they don't, then they're going to be looking down the barrel of possibly a 13-5, and then things get a little bit out of control.
The thing for me, and this is very much kind of future analysis, so bear with me here, because this is by no means a prediction of what could happen, but do take into account, if Optic walk away with another pissed round and then they still proceed to get overrun and lose the map, winning both pissed rounds, you would think that it would be a much more contended matchup.
Well, yeah, that's the only thing that really gets me, the fact that they should have at least had 6, because that third round that they lost was to straight up pistols. It has to be brought up. It's not really something they're going to want to remember anytime soon, but that is a round that you should never be losing. It does happen, and it's easy to sometimes just let that run away with them, and they came back a few rounds later, but that was sort of the big problem with their economy, because you look at these sort of middle rounds, that could have been so much cleaner for them. They win that third round, then say they lose the 2, and then win the 1. There's nowhere near as much economy built up onto Cloud9. They don't have anywhere near as much cash because they didn't have to buy a couple of rifles, and they won a round that they realistically should have lost. They get 3,500 instead of 2,400. Mathematically, there's no way that they would be getting that much cash.
You take into account the kind of economy balance. These simulations, you have one kind of key factor in common when it comes to Cloud9 winning those huge rounds. Let's talk about the fact that nothing pulled out a 4K, albeit nearly picked up an ace. Shroud, going to be the man to deny it, but still practically an ace nonetheless. But then he followed up with a second round as well. And albeit the second round from an economic standpoint wasn't as impactful, the first round, it completely smashed Optic's economy straight back into the ground and forced them to go back through that process of eco, then get ourselves back on the pie.
But that was also what began the streak. So that was the big problem, because nothing doesn't... I think if he doesn't even get 3 there, that I don't think they win the round, because they were losing players all over the shot. The A side was completely dominated. I'm pretty sure it was sort of a 2 versus 3 or something along of the sort. So definite problems in that round, and then he just goes absolutely huge. So the fact that that ends with them winning the round should never have happened, and you sort of take that round, you take the other round, you're looking at Optic on 7 or maybe 8 rounds. So yeah, big problems to start. However, we are going to go on to their CT side. They didn't do particularly badly, it's just they could have done much better, and I think that's the big thing for Optic there. They could have done much better. Now we have to focus much more heavily on their pistols. A lot of nades coming in for Cloud9 and really looking to where they'll be utilized, and Daps has himself that kit, but realistically at the start they've gone for this window play. They've taken over quite a bit of mid control. There's 2 players sort of jumping around. I feel like Daps has to know there's somebody here, and he's going to spot out Shroud's head. Will actually hit, I think, a dink through the gap in the vent, which is a little bit problematic. Going to try and get himself this first frag another way with automatic pushing towards him.
Just trying to give him a bit of a hug with the automatic, still just playing around this angle. It will actually mean him coming out on top, and there is a quick flurry of frags for C9. Skadoodle finding one of his own, Stewie, just adding it up to a total of 3. Optic left with just 2 minutes standing, only Naf and Rush. Then I look at this and go, well, what on earth can they even possibly do? There are 4 men standing for Cloud9, but less the numbers and more the positioning. Automatic going to be baiting them out towards short. They're forced, really. They have no room to push through window. They have to go for a bit of a crazy play towards the top and mid, try and push forward towards connector. But then you look at the fact that, well, there are 3 players over towards site, 1 playing close sandwich, the quick frag roll in from Automatic, just denying him any opportunity to go towards window. There is nowhere for them to run. They have no opportunity to retake this one because they physically can't face his angles. The manpower just isn't there.
Yeah, I would have actually liked to see them save, because the previous player who died had a kit with some Kevlar, and I just think that's a more valuable stance to them in the next round. You get a kit for free, you have a little bit of extra armor that you can use, and then you just buy up whatever pistol or even SMG you want around it. So I think that would have been the better option of such. You could even see Naf now go for head armor and buy up a sort of UMP or something along those lines. It is more down to him whether he wants to just continue to save and see what he can do with the pistol and have that extra cash later on. But no, he is. He's going to buy up the head armor, get himself a UMP and try and do some damage this way. On the other side of things, we have the AKs, and
Well, that's a shame.
what was that?
That was just Naf deciding, I was going to smoke ramp, but I've decided that I'm just going to throw it off the back of triple instead and decide that, you know, why not waste a bit of utility? An unfortunate mistake,
The
maybe a
3
bit too
nades
sarcastic.
they have.
But that's a really huge point, actually. Their utility is so low, but it doesn't matter because Mixwell, well, he's just going to use the pistol.
Oh,
That's
okay.
finding one of his own with another pistol. How on earth are these pistols doing just this much? Skadoodle finally going to balance out what's right with the world. We'll find one with a rifle, nothing, finding another with the UMP. But Optic, please.
Dabs. He's got himself an AK. So there's even more potential now in this round. Tarek's going to pick up a Molotov, so ideal. But it looks like they may have been baited by this rotation. There's still a player over towards A, but they don't really seem to have much presence there at all. And this is where that range of that AK could come into factor. They do, however, have Daps. He only has 25 HP. I would have preferred if there was a possibility for him to drop that over to somebody else. But realistically, I'm now looking at Tarek, because this should give them all the information they need that this is not going to be a B here. He's gone all the way through, should even be able to flank them. And the amount of time they're taking, this could get a little bit scary. Now he's going to spot out Shroud, tapping away, not quite going to find that kill. But this is going to stop their nade throws, and this could be even more problematic, because they're going to miss a couple of nades going onto the site. Daps up close and personal. That flashbang, it will catch him out eventually, and nothing, if he pushed there, it would have been much more viable. But here we go, Daps, he'll find one. It's a quick trade. The time's still ticking away. There is huge potential in this round, but Skadoodle just sprays them both and ends it in 1.
That's one hell of a way to walk away with a round. Skadoodle stepping up huge. There's one thing I want to see, and that was his point of view at that moment, because that looked like a spectacle just from looking at it from the third-person perspective. But hey, let's take a look at Optic, the team who currently are perched on 5. They're a lineup who consist of currently no money. So well and good, they might have, well, a sweet-ass house, but unfortunately, apparently have not much left to try and wield after buying that one, because they've got $1,200, $2,000 on a couple other players, not much to play with at all. And they seem to just be being farmed by Cloud9 as nothing. Going to be the first to find himself a frag, takes down Naf.
So what you're saying is they didn't spend enough on weaponry, they spent too much on the crib.
I mean, the house is amazing, don't get me wrong.
If you want me to come live with you, Optic, that is fine. I am useless in most sense of the word, but I will happily sleep there. Either way, enough of my personal life and begging Optic to let me live in their house. I'm going to go back to the fact that the pistols are currently being dominated. It doesn't look like we're going to see any craziness like we saw previously on the other side of the half. And, well, yeah, Stewie just going to add a little bit of extra money to his bank account. And Automatic, he's going to show them how it's done with the USP.
Really, not much to say. Aside from the fact that I do actually want to talk about Automatic and the USB, because that's really humiliating. When you're on a pistol round scenario, you're just limited to those USPs, and then a player comes in on the T side, picks up a USP, and then proceeds to get a 2K without really much effort at all. That's got to play on your mind. That's got to be sitting in the back of your head just going, well, if he can hit those shots, why can't I?
Yeah, the only difference is he has head armor. But
yeah, but
at the
in
same
terms of
time,
accuracy, that head armor doesn't affect your accuracy at all.
That's true. Either way, they've got to buy now. That's the big thing for Optic. They've got a long, long way ahead of them. 8 rounds to be back to level pegging, but they will start it off with a trade. Stewie gets one a little bit faster, and in the meantime, the bomb site has actually fallen. Not really a good hold so far, and still a little bit skeptical about Optic's CT side position. Either way, the spray will come in. Stewie's going to do a little bit more damage, but the trades are available as Mixwell grabs a kill. And now it's just going to be down to this 3 versus 3 scenario. The bomb down, the afterplant's in place. 2 players from CT, and nothing is going to go pushing. This is a little bit risky, and now he's going to fall. There's a little bit more potential, but the HP on Mixwell and Tarek is going to make it difficult.
It's so dangerous, though. These 2 flashes have to be utilized well from Mixwell. But it's just not quite going to happen. Skadoodle will take Naf down. They will go for the second peak. Skadoodle finds a second, takes down Mixwell. Just no utility being utilized at all when it was right there. The bomb will tick on down, and Tarek, he's left with no choice but to run for the hills. And you have to talk about the fact that just what on earth is going through Optic's mindset right now. Mixwell, he had 2 flashes in his back pocket, could pop flash at his teammates. He was in low HP, so there really was no reason for him to try and go make these huge clutch plays. And he could have just tried to go for the trades, but instead there was no utilage coming in at all. They just pushed in as a 3, were hoping for the best, hoping that their one-taps were going to bring them through. But unfortunately, one-taps don't necessarily win you a series. Even Scream nowadays can't just pull that one out of the bag.
You need Scream out. Scream is beautiful. He can do what he likes. But more importantly, I'm really enjoying the fact that Skadoodle with the rifle is just able to save them in so many close scenarios. That's twice now they've been in 2v2s and Skadoodle's just gone, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to spray everyone down. Starting off this round, it's not looking good at all. Nothing, and Skadoodle will combine back on the AWP. But the thing I'm enjoying more is when we get the scoreboard back up later, it's really evenly spread on Cloud9. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's stepping up on different moments. And on the CT side at the moment, it's only really Mixwell that we're talking about. It's like, yeah, Mixwell's on 18 kills. Everybody else is sort of a little bit further down on about 10 or 11. And that's sort of looking like a bit of a problem. In terms of this round individually, it looks like Cloud9 have everything under control. They have 4 players over towards mid. They can choose whatever direction they want, which is going to be over towards B, with the lurk of Shroud just holding off any further rotations. Tarek will be doing the work, though. I've always enjoyed him on this CT side, B side, and it's a hell of a lot to ask for. However, there we go. He finds another. Rush will eventually fall, but it's back to a 2 versus 2. Looking at just Tarek, he found a third. Actually doing great work again, and there we go, Tarek! He steps up and finds 4.
It's going to be the 6th round on the board. Tarek, the man responsible, perhaps even solely, some would say, finding himself a 4K in a round. That's a nice way to bring them up to 6. But this isn't exactly a clear-cut road. They have one hell of a task in front of them. Cloud9, they're not out of the woods just yet. They can still buy in. Well, yes, it's going to be Skadoodle taking the hit, but he's got a deagle, and I've got to say, I'm not scared for Skadoodle with a deagle. In fact, I'm scared for Optic's sake.
Yeah, well, on the other side of things, it's almost identical buys, except for the fact that Mixwell has an SMG. Tarek, he just went huge. He just went ham. He showed why I like watching him play this map, because he is ridiculous at points. They're going to need a little bit more than that to bring them through this round, but, well, if he can continue that form, there's nothing he can't do. The only problem is it's over towards A, and it's not going to continue. Shroud's going to take his head clean off, opening up this B site a little bit more. Shroud getting his first frag, actually, which is quite surprising. Just shows how much everybody else has been doing a lot of work on this secondary side of the map. Mixwell will be the second player in this position. Have rotated another one as well, but realistically, they've not actually situated themselves over towards B just yet. There's still 4 players surrounding mid and holding off any aggression that can come out from A. We're going to see a push sort of over towards Palace, but Daps, if he goes in here, he could be ended by Stewie, who's just waiting. They're playing this so passively. That's a lovely position. There's no way you're going to check that first time. And that's going to make things nice and easy. Now, Rush, the last player on this A site, the smoke's already going to be falling as there's 2 players left trying to make their way around with the rotation. But Rush, he's going to have to do something absolutely ridiculous, basically copy what Tarek did in the last round.
The huge problem is not only are they rotating, but the only really option they've got is to go to CT, because you take a look at mid. Shroud is there ready and waiting for Naf, but somehow Naf makes it work. The timing not quite going to pay off for Shroud, but even then it's still a 4 versus 3. Is now Naf just going to stutter step his way over towards connector. Stewie finding one of his own, takes down Rush. Makes it even worse because now it's a 4 versus 2. The bomber has made its way successfully down, no interrupt being made. Stewie will fall, but the Deagle Skadoodle is going to be on the hunt. Turns around, punishes Naf coming in with a 2K, but even then a 2K not going to be enough because now Skadoodle just rattling off more shots with the Deagle. Nothing going to be the man to seal the deal in Cloud9. Well, now they've got themselves on match point. Optic, on the other hand, still just perched at 6. A very rough scenario coming out in the play. Optic only actually managing to find 1 round in this entirety of the second half. Cloud9, on the other hand, they're looking dominant. And the key thing about that last round was Optic, if they thought they had economy.
Goodbye. Just, yeah, that's pretty much it. 5-7s across the board. They've got to try and make this work with next to nothing. Skadoodle not even going to buy. It's just going to continue with his Deeg and feeling pretty confident on that matter itself. And, well, realistically, this is looking like a pretty horrific position now. Nothing really going up trump for Optic. They haven't had any sort of start. They won the first pistol, didn't manage too many rounds on the T side. That wasn't a worry. Then they lost the second, and they didn't get much of a chance to even have a buy position. And when they finally got one, it got destroyed. Skadoodle, Stewie combining. They're going to basically bring this one to a close, as there's only 3 players now to try and make this one work. Naf in a decent position. Maybe a kill will come in for Mixwell, doing a little bit of extra damage. He finds himself 2. Now it's getting a bit more plausible, but Automatic, he'll find 1 more. Only 1 left to find, and he has no idea. Daps will be closed out, and a dominating second map for Cloud9, who win this one 16-6.
bit of an interesting one, the way that did unfold. I've got to say, it felt like it was very much more lopsided in comparison to what the first map was. Just didn't feel as, I guess, fair is the phrase that comes to mind. Just nowhere near as, clear cut. And in comparison, the second map was just almost an, kind of open and shut case, something we've not really said in a while, but it does kind of bring that one true.
Yeah, no, the big thing for me was the fact that we didn't really see too much from a lot of individuals. Yes, we had Tarek step up in one round. We had Mixwell going off sort of across the board on different occasions. But on the other side of things, everybody was just doing their job. We had every single player having moments. Shroud on the B side was absolutely phenomenal. In terms of actual fragging itself in 2v2, Skadoodle was great. With a rifle as well, which is not something we see too often. And even with the Deeg. So when it came down to it, it just looked like in terms of mistakes as well, Optic were all over the place. So that is going to be it for map number 2. We're now on a 1-1 standpoint. We'll go to the third and final map, and we will find out who will be qualifying and who will be staying at home.